Before Ethan and I were born, my parents lived modestly in a small, tight-knit town. My father worked long hours as a mechanic, while my mother managed a local diner. They didn't have much, but they had each other, and they dreamed of building a better life. When I was finally born after years of struggling to conceive, they were overjoyed, calling me their miracle baby. For the first few years of my life, I was their entire world. Every milestone, every laugh, every moment, I was surrounded by warmth and affection. But then, everything changed when Ethan arrived 2 years later. Suddenly, my parents' focus shifted completely. Their relief at having a second child turned into an obsession. What had once been balanced attention soon transformed into blatant favoritism. At first, it was subtle. When Ethan got into trouble, his antics were brushed off as cute. If I made a mistake, I was scolded. As time went on, the difference in treatment became impossible to ignore. In school, I worked hard, excelling in both academics and sports. My teachers and coaches praised me, but at home, my achievements barely registered. Meanwhile, the smallest thing Ethan did, like kicking a ball into a net, was met with endless celebration. One summer, we took a trip to the lake. Ethan broke a neighbor's paddleboard, yet somehow, I was the one blamed. I hadn't even been near him when it happened, but my parents insisted I should have been watching him. That was the moment I realized my place in the family. I wasn't just overlooked. I was the scapegoat. By the time I reached high school, the gap between us had widened into a chasm. I worked part-time jobs to save for college, while Ethan was handed money freely. The one time I spoke up about the unfairness, I was told, "You're the older brother. You need to understand." But the truth was, there was nothing to understand. I was second place in my own family, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't change that. Determined to break free, I applied for scholarships, desperate to escape the suffocating environment at home. When I finally secured a partial scholarship to college, I thought my parents would be proud. Instead, they threw a lavish party, not for me, but for Ethan, who had simply decided to attend community college. That was the moment I gave up hoping for their approval. Now, at 31, I find myself reflecting on the life I built, one that, until recently, included my 5-year engagement to Samantha. After years of being overlooked, I had fought to prove my worth. But no matter how much I accomplished, Ethan remained the golden child. His failures were brushed aside, while I carried the weight of every responsibility. When he dropped out of community college, my parents rewarded his self-awareness by buying him a brand new car. Meanwhile, I biked miles to work, struggling to afford my tuition. His failed business ideas were met with endless support. My stable career? Barely a mention. I tried to maintain some sort of relationship with Ethan, but it was always competitive, always one-sided. Then, I met Samantha, through one of Ethan's friends, of all people. She was everything I had wanted, intelligent, funny, and kind. For the first time, I felt truly appreciated for who I was. My parents, of course, found things to criticize, questioning why someone like her would date me. But what unsettled me most was Ethan's sudden interest in our relationship. He asked about Samantha constantly, as if he were studying her. I was naive enough to think it was harmless curiosity. A year into our relationship, Samantha and I moved in together. We were happy, planning a future filled with love and stability. After 4 years, I proposed. She said yes. We decided on a long engagement, so we could plan the wedding we had always envisioned. When we shared the news, my family's reaction was predictably underwhelming. My mother forced a smile, my father barely reacted, and Ethan's congratulations felt forced, like he was waiting for something to go wrong. Then, Samantha started changing. She was on her phone constantly, spending more time out of the house. I trusted her completely, convincing myself it was nothing. A few months ago, she became distant, moody, withdrawn. I dared to hope that maybe she was pregnant. The idea of starting a family with her filled me with excitement. Then one night, my world shattered. "I'm pregnant," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "But it's not yours." The words hit me like a freight train. "What?" My stomach dropped. "What do you mean it's not mine?" Tears streamed down her face. "It's Ethan's." A hollow silence filled the room. My mind reeled, trying to process the betrayal. "My brother?" My voice was barely a whisper, laced with disbelief and rage. "How could you do this?" Samantha broke down. "I never meant for it to happen," she sobbed. "It just happened." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. It just happened? My hands trembled with fury. I was working day and night for our future, sacrificing for our dreams, and you— I paused, my voice unsteady. You turned to him? She nodded, unable to meet my eyes. At that moment, something inside me broke. Samantha's voice trembled. I know I've ruined everything. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I still love you. A bitter laugh escaped me. Love? Don't use that word. Love isn't sneaking around behind my back. Love isn't betraying me with my own brother. Please, she whispered, stepping closer. It wasn't supposed to happen. I was lost, and Ethan, he said things that made me question us. Question us. My voice rose, my anger spilling over. So instead of talking to me, you ran straight to him? The same brother who has been trying to outshine me my entire life. Her voice wavered. Ethan made me feel like I deserved more. More. I cut her off, my words like ice. You threw away everything we had because of him? My hands clenched at my sides. I gave you my trust, my heart, my future, and this is what you did with it? Tears streamed down her face as she reached for me. I was selfish, I know. I regret it every day. Please, let me fix this. Fix it. I repeated, shaking my head in disbelief. You think this is something you can just fix? My voice was raw, filled with rage and betrayal. You destroyed everything. Her sobs filled the room as I stepped back. I'm sorry, she whispered. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you. I'll do anything to make this right. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. It's too late, Samantha. You made your choice. And now I'm making mine. I stared at her, my decision final. You and Ethan deserve each other. She dropped to her knees, her body racked with uncontrollable sobs. Please don't leave me. I'll do whatever it takes. I didn't waver. My voice was steady but cold. You've already done enough. I can't forgive this. Not now, not ever. Her tear-streaked face lifted to mine, desperation filling her eyes. What are you saying? Don't throw me out. We can work through this. No, my voice was firm, unwavering. You lied. You betrayed me. You broke us. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing myself to remain strong. Pack your things and leave. Her face paled. After everything, you're just going to throw me out? Yes. I didn't hesitate. You made your decision long ago. Now I'm making mine. Get out. Tears fell freely as she stood there, motionless, her sobs echoing through the room. Slowly, she turned and began gathering her belongings, each movement heavy with regret. I turned away, unable to watch. The weight of her betrayal was suffocating. But as Samantha packed, my anger shifted to him. My hands trembled as I punched Ethan's number into my phone. The call barely rang before he picked up, his voice casual, almost smug. Hey, he greeted, as if nothing had happened. We need to talk, I said, barely keeping my voice steady. A pause. Then he sighed. Look, I don't know what this is about, but cut the act, I snapped. My patience was gone. I know everything. You and Samantha. Silence. Then, finally, he exhaled. All right, fine. I messed up. But it was a mistake, okay? It didn't mean anything. She was drunk and don't even try to downplay this. My grip on the phone tightened. You knew what you were doing. You knew how much she meant to me, and you did it anyway. He let out another sigh, irritation creeping into his voice. I said I'm sorry, all right? But maybe if you'd been a better fiancée, she wouldn't have come to me. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. My breath caught in my throat as my rage surged. Excuse me. My voice was dangerously low. You heard me, Ethan shot back. If you'd been there for her, maybe she wouldn't have needed me. She needed someone who cared. Something inside me snapped. You think you can justify this? My voice shook with fury. You think you can say that after what you've done? He hesitated. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't let him finish. I slammed my phone down, my chest heaving. I couldn't just sit there. I needed to see him, to face him. When I arrived at my parents' house, the tension was suffocating. My parents were seated at the dining table, and Ethan stood near the window, shifting uneasily. His eyes met mine, filled with guilt, but also something else. Defiance. My mother spoke first, her voice careful, rehearsed. We need to talk. Ethan told us everything, and he knows it was a mistake. I clenched my jaw. Stop. My voice was firm, simmering with anger. You don't get to excuse him. Her face softened, but her bias was clear. He's your brother. People make mistakes. Family forgives. Family. My voice rose. What kind of family excuses betrayal like this? I turned to my father, waiting for him to step in. He barely looked at me. You're being overly dramatic. He made a mistake. You need to move past it. A bitter laugh escaped me. Move past it? He didn't just make a mistake. He slept with my fiancée. He tore my life apart. Ethan finally spoke, stepping forward. His tone was defensive. She came to me, all right? She needed someone. I glared at him, my voice low and sharp. Don't try to spin this. You didn't comfort her. You took advantage. Of her. Of me. Of everything I trusted. He shifted uncomfortably, but his arrogance returned. You're making this worse by holding on to it. If you just let it go, maybe we could fix things. I stepped closer, my fists clenched at my sides. Fix this? There's nothing to fix. I exhaled, shaking my head. You made your choice, Ethan. And now I'm making mine. You're not my brother anymore. My mother gasped. I turned to her, my voice breaking under years of resentment. You've always put him first. No matter what he did, you protected him. My voice cracked, but I kept going. Even now, you're defending him, like this is no big deal. My eyes burned as I looked back at Ethan, my voice filled with disgust. You wanted everything I had, didn't you? I stepped forward, my stare unwavering. Well, congratulations. You got it. You've lost me in the process. My voice was steady, the weight of my words hanging between us. Ethan's face paled. You don't mean that, he said, his voice small. It was just a mistake. A bitter laugh escaped me. A mistake? No, Ethan. A mistake is missing a meeting or forgetting someone's birthday. What you did was a choice, a selfish, deliberate choice. And now, you get to live with the consequences. I turned to my parents, their unwavering loyalty suffocating. You can have him, I said coldly. Your golden child. But I'm done trying to fit into a family that never made space for me. I spent my entire life coming in second to him. Not anymore. My father's eyes darkened. You're being childish, he scoffed. Family sticks together. You don't just walk away over one mistake. I exhaled, shaking my head. If this is what family means, betrayal, dismissal, and forced forgiveness, then I want no part of it. Without another word, I walked out, slamming the door behind me. For the first time in years, I felt something close to freedom. My heart was shattered, but at least I was free of the weight I had carried for so long. I walked away. When I got home, my phone was flooded with missed calls and texts. Samantha's messages were desperate, pleas for forgiveness, words drenched in regret. Ethan fluctuated between shallow apologies and blaming me for not being there for her. My parents demanded I grow up and move past it. I ignored them all. For days, I was a ghost. I barely ate. Sleep was non-existent. My mind replayed everything in a relentless loop, dissecting every moment as if understanding it would somehow dull the pain. But no matter how many times I analyzed it, the truth remained. I had been cast aside, like I never mattered. And I was done. Months passed. I moved to a new apartment, started therapy, and began rebuilding my life. I cut them off completely, refusing to let them pull me back into their dysfunction. But they found ways to intrude, texts, calls, even unexpected visits. One evening, I walked to my car and saw my mother waiting beside it, her face streaked with tears. She clutched her purse like it held the answers she needed. Please, she sobbed. You're tearing this family apart. Your father, we can't take this. I stopped a few feet away, my stomach tightening. Mom, I didn't destroy this family. Ethan did. I didn't make him betray me, and I didn't make you defend him. Her voice cracked. It was a mistake. Families forgive, son. Don't you want things to go back to normal? I shook my head. No, because this isn't about a single mistake. It's a pattern. One I refuse to be part of anymore. My voice hardened. I spent my entire life trying to belong in this family, but every time I stood up for myself, I was made to feel like I was the problem. Well, I'm done. I won't forgive Ethan, and I won't come back. She collapsed onto the curb, her sobs raw and unfiltered. You're breaking my heart, she whispered. Please, just think about this. I hesitated, but I couldn't let guilt pull me back. You don't get to guilt me into this anymore. My voice was steady. I need to move on, even if it means leaving all of you behind. I turned, got into my car, and slammed the door shut. My phone rang. My father. Against my better judgment, I answered. Man up, he barked the moment I picked up. This is family. You've been through worse, and you're letting this tear you apart? Forgive your brother and move on. I gripped the steering wheel, my jaw tightening. You mean your family, I said coldly. The one where Ethan always comes first. I'm not playing along anymore. His voice turned sharp. Then you've made your choice. A long pause. Be ready to live with the consequences. I hung up. The silence in my car was suffocating, but I knew I'd made the right decision. A few days later, I got a voicemail from my cousin Deborah. "Hey, it's Deborah. I've been talking to your mom. I know this is hard, but family is everything. Don't throw it all away. Maybe it's time to forgive Ethan." I called her back, barely containing my frustration. "Deborah, you weren't there. You don't know what happened." My voice was sharp. "I am done being guilt-tripped into forgiving people who don't deserve it." She sighed. "I just thought, maybe you'd want things back to normal." "No," I said flatly. "I don't." Hanging up, I set my phone down. Finding peace wasn't easy, but I knew it was worth fighting for, even if it meant standing alone. Yesterday, Samantha messaged me. She's keeping the baby. She and Ethan will co-parent. My parents? Overjoyed. The same people who trashed her while she was with me are now treating her like family. Her message was filled with apologies and declarations of her true love for Ethan. She even suggested we could all be friends for the child's sake. The nerve of it made my stomach churn. I'm at my limit. Part of me wants to disappear, leave everything behind, and start fresh. Another part of me burns with anger, desperate for them to understand the depth of what they've done. I feel trapped between the two. This betrayal has consumed my life. I can't even imagine trusting someone enough to date again. I've lost friends over this. Some think I'm being unreasonable, that I should take the high road and reconcile as if I caused this. And now, the worst part, the baby. The thought of Ethan and Samantha raising a child together, a child that could have been mine, is unbearable. I know the baby is innocent, but its existence is a constant reminder of everything they took from me. And now my parents have the nerve to demand I play the role of doting uncle. The very idea makes me sick. How can I look at that child and not see the betrayal? I've taken steps to protect myself. I consulted a lawyer and filed a restraining order. I've made it clear I will not be involved with this child. It's not their fault, but I need to survive this. Work has been my escape. HR has been supportive, even offering remote work and extra security. I'm considering a transfer to another city. A fresh start feels terrifying, but maybe it's the only way to rebuild. Samantha admitted the affair. The timeline confirms Ethan is the father. Even if the baby had been mine, I doubt I could separate my feelings from the betrayal. Samantha's family has been surprisingly supportive. Mine? They still think I'm the problem. Samantha's family had officially cut ties with her and reached out to me, offering support. It was a small comfort in an otherwise isolating situation. I appreciated the gesture, but nothing could undo the damage. This entire ordeal had forced me to reconsider whether I even wanted a family of my own. For now, all I could do was focus on healing, one painful day at a time. The restraining order process turned out to be far more complicated than I had expected. At the hearing, my parents had hired an expensive lawyer, someone well-versed in twisting the truth to suit their narrative. They painted me as irrational, claiming I was blowing a small mistake out of proportion. Their lawyer's polished, condescending arguments made my stomach churn. But the evidence was on my side. My lawyer laid it all out. Text messages, emails, records of their harassment, their countless attempts to invade my life even after I had begged them to stay away. The judge sat in silence, listening intently, her expression unreadable as both sides presented their arguments. When she finally spoke, her voice was firm and unwavering. The restraining order is granted. This behavior is unacceptable. The order is effective immediately. Relief washed over me, but it was hollow. My mother gasped as if the world had ended, her sobs filling the courtroom. My father's glare bore into me, thick with disappointment. They both looked at me like I was the one who had betrayed them. As I walked out of the courtroom, Ethan was waiting for me, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. His expression was pure fury. "This isn't over," he muttered, his jaw tight. "You'll regret this." Before I could respond, my lawyer stepped between us. "Back off, Ethan," he said sharply. "The restraining order is in effect. Any further contact will lead to legal action." Ethan sneered, but didn't move. "You think a piece of paper is going to stop me?" His eyes were filled with malice. "You can't hide forever." His words stung, but I refused to give him the reaction he wanted. Instead, I turned and walked away. Even if the road ahead was lonely, I would not let them drag me back into their chaos. A week later, everything hit a breaking point. I was in a crucial work meeting when my assistant entered, her expression uneasy. She leaned in and whispered, "Your mom is in the lobby. She's causing a scene." My stomach twisted. Excusing myself, I made my way downstairs, dreading what I would find. And then I saw it. My mother stood in the middle of the lobby, a photo album in her hands, flipping through baby pictures of Ethan and me. My coworkers, confused and uncomfortable, stood around her as she recounted fond childhood memories. She was in the middle of telling a story about how Ethan and I used to bathe together as toddlers when she spotted me. Her face lit up like she hadn't completely shattered my life. "Oh, sweetheart," she called out, her voice overly cheerful. She rushed toward me. "I've been looking for you. We're planning a baby shower for Ethan and Samantha, and—" My body went rigid. "I don't want to hear it," I cut her off, my voice sharp. "You need to leave. Now." She blinked, stunned by my harshness. "I don't understand why you're being like this," she said, her voice turning frustrated. "I'm just trying to make things right." "I don't care," I said, my patience gone. "Leave. Now." Before she could protest, security arrived. I turned away, letting them handle it, refusing to waste another second on her theatrics. She had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to tolerate it. The rest of the day was spent on damage control, apologizing to my boss, reassuring coworkers who had been dragged into my personal mess. While most were understanding, I could still feel the judgment, the whispered conversations when they thought I wasn't listening. It left a bitter taste in my mouth. No matter how far I ran, my family's dysfunction always found a way to invade my life. A few days later, I went to the gym, hoping to burn off the lingering frustration. The rhythmic pounding of my fists against the punching bag helped, until an all-too-familiar voice shattered my focus. "Still working out, huh? Ethan." I turned to find him standing there, a smug smirk plastered on his face. Rage burned in my chest. "Get lost, Ethan," I said, my tone cold. "You're not supposed to be here." He let out an exaggerated laugh, loud enough to draw attention. "Oh, come on, don't be like that," he taunted, stepping closer. "You got your precious restraining order. But guess what? I'm still hooking up with Samantha." That was it. The last shred of restraint I had snapped. "Leave." My voice was low, dangerous. He smirked. "What are you going to do about it? Call the cops? You think they'll believe you?" Before I could stop myself, my fist connected with his jaw. For a split second, there was silence. Then Ethan lunged at me, grabbing my shirt, and we crashed to the floor. We fought like we were kids again, except this time, there was real hatred behind every hit. Pain flared as his fist connected with my face, and I landed a blow to his stomach in return. My vision blurred for a second, but I shoved him off with everything I had. "You're dead to me, Ethan," I shouted, chest heaving. But he wasn't done. He grabbed my shirt again, his voice full of venom. "You're nothing but a pathetic." I didn't let him finish. I swung again, this time landing a kick to his ribs. By the time gym staff intervened, we were both bruised and breathless. A trainer held me back while another restrained Ethan. The gym manager stormed over, his voice cutting through the chaos. "That's enough. If you two don't stop, I'm calling the cops. You're both banned." Ethan glared at me, wiping the blood from his nose. His face twisted with rage, but finally, he backed down. Before storming out, he threw me one last venomous look. I stood there, chest heaving, as the gym manager turned to me. "You need to leave," he said firmly. I grabbed my things and walked out, ignoring the whispers and stares. None of it mattered. All that mattered was putting as much distance between myself and Ethan as possible. As I drove home, adrenaline still buzzing through me, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number. Without thinking, I answered. "How could you?" Samantha's furious voice exploded through the line. "You broke Ethan's nose. He might need surgery." The sheer absurdity of it made me laugh, a cold, humorless sound. "Oh, my apologies," I said mockingly. "Did I hurt your precious boyfriend? The one you cheated on me with for months?" "My mistake." For a moment, Samantha was silent. Then, in a trembling voice, she said, "This isn't about that. Ethan is hurt, and my stress is affecting the baby. You're being so selfish." My anger reignited. Selfish? She had the audacity to call me selfish? "You're seriously lecturing me on selfishness after everything you did?" My voice was sharp with disbelief. "You've got some nerve, Samantha." She started sobbing. "This isn't just about us. It's about the baby. Please, try to understand." I clenched my jaw. "No, you don't get to twist this into being about the baby. You made it about your betrayal. I'm done." Before she could say another word, I ended the call and blocked her number. I refused to waste another second on her manipulations. But the fallout from the fight didn't end there. Word spread fast. My phone exploded with messages, some from friends who offered their support, but others weren't so understanding. One text from an old friend stung the most. "I get that you're hurt, but seriously? Knocking up Ethan was a step too far. Another came from someone I barely even knew. What's wrong with you? He's your brother. Are you really throwing everything away over a mistake? The judgment was infuriating. How could they possibly side with Ethan after everything he had done? Thankfully, there were messages from people who did understand. You did what you had to do, a close friend wrote. Don't let anyone guilt you for standing up for yourself. You're better off without them. Even Samantha's own parents reached out, expressing their disgust over her choices and offering their support. It was a small comfort, but it didn't erase the anger. No matter how much validation I received, I couldn't shake the image of Ethan's bloodied face from my mind. Not because I regretted hitting him, but because I hated that he had pushed me so far. I had let him bring me down to his level. And I hated that. The legal aftermath only made things worse. The next morning, my lawyer called, his voice heavy. Ethan has filed assault charges against you. Disbelief surged through me. Are you kidding me? He broke the restraining order. He provoked me. My lawyer sighed, clearly expecting my reaction. I understand your side, but legally? You threw the first punch. That complicates things. I felt rage bubbling beneath the surface. So what happens now? You'll need to give a statement to the police, document your injuries, and prepare for a drawn-out legal process, he said grimly. I won't lie. It's going to be humiliating. I wish I had better news. The frustration hit me like a truck. Giving my statement to the police was gut-wrenching. Explaining how my own brother had driven me to violence felt degrading. The officers were professional, but detached, just another case, just another mess to document. And then, to add insult to injury, my gym manager called. After what happened, we have to ban you both, he said, his voice apologetic. It's policy. I swallowed my frustration. I understand, I said flatly, even though I didn't. Losing the gym, a rare outlet for my stress, felt like yet another piece of my life slipping away. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't sure how to move forward. Late one evening, my cousin Rachel called. Her tone was laced with concern and something else, frustration. Hey, she said softly. How are you holding up? I sighed, running a hand down my face. Same as always. Just trying to get through the day. What's going on? She hesitated. It's about the family. My stomach clenched. More drama. Rachel sighed. Yeah, Mom and Dad have been pressuring me to turn against you. But I'm not doing it. I wanted you to hear that from me. Relief flooded through me. Thank you, Rachel. That means a lot. There's more, she said cautiously. My grip on the phone tightened. What kind of more? They've been spreading rumors about you, she admitted. Saying you're having a breakdown. That you're jealous of Ethan and Samantha and can't accept their relationship. Basically, they're making you out to be bitter and unstable. I let out a humorless laugh. Unbelievable. After everything, they still find a way to make me the villain. Unfortunately, yeah, Rachel said. Some people see through it, but others? They're eating it up. I clenched my jaw. I'm exhausted, Rachel. I'm trying to move on, but they won't let me. They've already ruined enough. I get it, she said, voice thick with sympathy. But listen, I'm standing by you. I won't let them smear your name without a fight. Her words lifted a weight off my chest. Thank you, Rachel. I don't know what I'd do without you. You don't need to thank me, she said firmly. I've got your back. I hesitated, then admitted, I want peace. But they keep dragging me back into their mess. I feel like I can't escape it. Rachel exhaled. I know. But remember, not everyone believes their lies. Some people see the truth, even if it doesn't feel like it. I nodded, trying to let her words sink in. Thanks. I'll try to remember that. Take care of yourself, okay? She said before hanging up. And call me if you need anything. I will, I promised. I'm lucky to have you in my corner. Same here, she said. Talk soon. After the call, I sat in silence, absorbing everything. It hurt knowing my own parents were actively tarnishing my name. But having Rachel in my corner? It meant something. The tension at work hadn't eased since the incident with my mother at the office, and the gym fight going viral on social media didn't help. My coworkers had become distant, their unease hanging in the air. Then, one afternoon, my manager called me into his office. Closing the door behind me, I sat down, already sensing this wasn't a casual meeting. Nathan, my boss, sighed, rubbing his temple before speaking. I want you to know we value you, he started, choosing his words carefully. You've been a great employee. You bring a lot to this company. But we also see that you're going through a lot. I nodded cautiously, a sinking feeling growing in my chest. I appreciate that. And yet, I already knew where this conversation was heading. Thank you, I muttered, My voice lacked sincerity. My manager exhaled heavily, shifting in his seat. He looked uncomfortable, like he didn't want to be the one having this conversation. Given the circumstances, he said carefully, I think it would be best if you take some time off. A personal sabbatical. Paid, of course, until things settled down. My stomach dropped. Work had been my only escape from the wreckage of my life. I don't know, I hesitated. I'm not sure that's the best idea. I understand, he said, his tone gentle but firm. But you've been under a lot of stress, and honestly, you're not at your best right now. A break might help. I clenched my fists under the desk, frustration bubbling beneath my skin. I'm fine, I said through gritted teeth. I don't need time off. I need to keep working. He offered a sympathetic smile that only fueled my irritation. Sometimes stepping back is the best way to move forward, he said, as if that would magically fix everything. Take this time to focus on yourself. When you're ready, we'll be here. I sighed, realizing this wasn't up for debate. He had already made his decision. Fine, I said, forcing a calm tone. Thank you for understanding. His relief was obvious. Of course. We'll sort out the details soon. As I left his office, a mix of embarrassment and anger churned inside me. People had already been treating me like a walking disaster. This would only make it worse. Grabbing my things, I tried to ignore the stares and whispers that seemed louder than usual. But as I passed the break room, my footsteps slowed. Did you hear? Someone said, chuckling. Ethan got Nathan's fiancée pregnant. I froze. My blood turned ice. My heart pounded as I registered the words. My first instinct was to storm in and confront them, to demand they shut their mouths. But instead, I grabbed the door handle, yanked it open hard, and slammed it shut behind me. The sound echoed through the hallway. Silence followed. I felt their startled stares on my back as I walked away. I didn't stop to explain, didn't turn around to see their reactions. For the first time in days, I felt a sliver of control, no matter how fleeting. But the weight of everything settled back over me just as quickly. That night, I did what had become a habit, driving aimlessly. The road stretched endlessly in front of me, the hum of the car and the cool air rushing in through the window the only things keeping me grounded. I had no destination in mind. And yet, somehow, I ended up outside the old apartment Samantha and I had once shared. I stared at the building, old memories flooding back, moments that once felt safe, now nothing but a cruel joke. How had everything unraveled so fast? A buzz from my phone pulled me from my thoughts. A notification from social media. Against my better judgment, I opened it. A message from Sophia, Samantha's younger sister. Hey, I just wanted to say I'm sorry about everything. I can't believe what Samantha and Ethan did to you. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. I stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. Was this a trap? A ploy for more drama? Or was she actually reaching out? Sophia had distanced herself from Samantha after the betrayal, but her timing felt strange. I hesitated, then typed back. Why are you reaching out now, after everything? Her reply was almost immediate. I know it's weird, and I get it if you don't want to talk to me, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. Samantha's been telling everyone she's suffering, saying Ethan is her true love. It's all lies. I'm disgusted by it. I just wanted you to know you're not alone. Not everyone is on their side. A mix of anger and gratitude surged inside me. Could I trust her? How do I know you're not just messing with me like the rest of them? I typed. Why now? She hesitated before replying. I don't blame you for doubting me. But I'm not Samantha, and I barely talk to her anymore. I've seen what she and Ethan are doing, and it's disgusting. They moved in together, and she's acting like the victim to anyone who'll listen. I just thought you should have the truth. Her words stirred something in me, a mix of vindication and renewed rage. After a moment, I finally replied. Thanks for being honest. I don't know what this means, but at least you're not lying to me. I never will, she promised. I exhaled deeply, started the car, and drove off. Sophia's message didn't erase the pain, but it was a rare moment of truth in a sea of lies. For now, that was enough. But the calm didn't last. Within days, the gym fight with Ethan went viral. Someone, probably one of his friends, posted a detailed account on a local Facebook page. They hadn't named us directly, but the description was specific enough that anyone who knew us could connect the dots. The comment section exploded. Some people defended me. He deserved it, one person wrote bluntly. But others took Ethan's side, calling me unhinged, accusing me of needing professional help. One comment even suggested I should be locked up for attacking my own brother. The judgment cut deep. No matter how hard I tried to ignore it, The avalanche of opinions was overwhelming. People I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly popped up in my notifications, some offering support, others digging for more drama. Everyone wanted a piece of the story, and I couldn't escape it. One night, after drinking way too much to numb the frustration, I made the mistake of revisiting the viral post. The comments had gotten worse. I scrolled through each cruel remark, my chest tightening, my hands gripping the phone harder and harder. Until, finally, I hurled my phone across the room. It hit the wall with a crack, the screen shattering on impact. I sat there, breathing heavily, staring at the broken device. My life had become a public spectacle, a never-ending nightmare where people who didn't know the full story felt entitled to weigh in, offering judgment, speculation, and advice I never asked for. I was done. The next morning, I took the first real step toward regaining control. I deactivated most of my social media. The endless notifications, the invasive questions, the constant judgment. I shut it all down. I couldn't erase the past. I couldn't undo the betrayal. But I could remove myself from the circus my life had become. And that was something. Shutting everything down was the only way to breathe, even though the damage had already been done. My phone was shattered, my name dragged through the mud, and I was left picking up the pieces of a life I no longer recognized. Staying in this city no longer felt like an option. Everywhere I went, there were reminders of Samantha, of Ethan, of my parents. The weight of humiliation and betrayal clung to me, making even simple tasks feel suffocating. The possibility of running into them at the grocery store, a coffee shop, or even just walking down the street sent waves of anxiety through me. I had started looking into internal transfers at work. One position in Seattle caught my attention. At first, I hesitated. The idea of uprooting my life felt daunting. The constant rain, the unfamiliar streets, it all seemed overwhelming. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt like a lifeline. A new city, a new apartment, a place where no one knew my story, where no one would whisper behind my back or judge me for things beyond my control. The thought of leaving everything behind wasn't just appealing, it felt necessary. Meanwhile, my parents had gone silent since the restraining order was issued. I knew this quiet wouldn't last. It wasn't peace, it was a strategy. They were regrouping, figuring out their next move. But for now, I was savoring the rare silence. Samantha, however, was making up for their absence by broadcasting her pregnancy on social media. Sophia, her younger sister, messaged me about the constant posts, ultrasound pictures, baby bump updates, captions about how blessed she was to be starting this beautiful journey with Ethan. Each post felt like a punch to the gut. I tried to avoid seeing them, but sometimes curiosity got the better of me. And every time, I regretted it. Each post was like reopening a wound, a painful reminder of what I had lost, or, more accurately, what had been stolen from me. The decision to relocate became final after a particularly brutal day. I had just left another frustrating meeting with my lawyer about Ethan's assault charges. The case was dragging on, the stress suffocating. When I got home, I found an envelope in my mailbox. Samantha's handwriting was on the front. My first instinct was to throw it away, but curiosity won. Inside was an ultrasound photo and a handwritten letter. I know things have been hard, but I wanted to share some good news. Ethan and I are expecting a baby, and we're excited for this new chapter. I hope, in time, you'll find it in your heart to be happy for us. The baby will be lucky to have an uncle like you. Take care. I saw red. Before I could think, my hands were already moving. I unblocked Samantha's number and called her. My fingers shook as the phone rang. She answered after the second ring, her voice calm, like nothing had happened. Hello. I didn't hold back. Listen, you selfish witch, I snapped. I just read your letter. Are you seriously expecting me to feel happy for you and Ethan after everything you've done? There was a pause. Then, softly, she said, I know this isn't easy. Not easy. I interrupted, my voice rising. You destroyed my life, Samantha. You and Ethan. And now you want me to be some loving uncle to your kid? Are you insane? Her voice wavered. I never wanted to hurt you. I laughed bitterly. Don't lie to yourself. You knew exactly what you were doing. You, Ethan, my parents, all of you. My voice was sharp. You can all go to hell. She inhaled sharply, but I wasn't done. I'm not going to play along with your fantasy. That baby is nothing but a reminder of your betrayal. Don't ever contact me again. Silence. I could almost hear her trying to compose herself. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I really hoped you'd come around eventually. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. Well, you hoped wrong. She exhaled, a small, shaky breath. Well, I guess this is goodbye then. I didn't respond. Instead, I hung up. Tossing my phone onto the couch, I started pacing, adrenaline still coursing through me. It wasn't my finest moment, but for the first time in months, I felt like I had reclaimed some of my power. But it wasn't enough. The memories, the betrayals, the suffocating weight of everything that had happened, it was too much. I needed to leave. I needed a fresh start, far away from all of them. Without hesitation, I picked up the phone and dialed my supervisor. "Hey," I said, trying to steady my voice. "I've decided to take the transfer to Seattle." There was a brief pause before he responded, sounding relieved. "Honestly, I think that's a great idea," he admitted. "This situation has been tough for everyone, and a fresh start might be good for you. I'll fast-track the paperwork." For the first time in ages, I felt like I was making the right choice. "Thanks," I said. I need to get out of here." By the next morning, the transfer was official. I had 2 weeks to pack and leave. It felt overwhelming, but it also felt like a massive weight had lifted off my shoulders. Word spread quickly. It didn't take long for my parents to show up at my apartment, banging on the door. "Nathan, open up. We need to talk." My mother's voice was frantic, filled with desperation. I took a deep breath before opening the door. They stood there, anger and hurt written all over their faces. "What do you want?" I asked, keeping my tone calm but firm. "You're abandoning us," my mother said, her eyes glassy with unshed tears. "You're walking away from your family. You're throwing everything away." I clenched my jaw. "I'm not throwing anything away," I replied coldly. "I'm leaving because being around you makes me sick." My father stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. "This is selfish and immature," he snapped. "You can't just run away from your problems. You owe it to your family to stay and fix this." I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "Oh, you?" I scoffed. "You mean the family that sided with Ethan while he screwed my fiancée? The family that spent my entire life making me feel like I wasn't enough? I don't owe you anything." Turning away, I walked toward the packed boxes, my chest heaving. "Nathan," my mother pleaded, her voice trembling. "You're going to regret this. Family is everything. You'll see how much you've hurt us." I paused. Then, slowly, I turned back to them, my voice cold and steady. "Goodbye, Mother." And then, I closed the door. I took a deep breath, my voice cold and firm. "Goodbye, Dad. Don't call me for your funeral." Before they could respond, I pulled out my phone and dialed the police. "I need assistance," I told the dispatcher, keeping my tone steady. "My parents are here, violating a restraining order." Minutes later, officers arrived. My parents protested immediately, their voices rising in desperation. "He's our child," my father shouted. "You can't just let him shut us out like this." The officers remained calm and professional, escorting them away. As they stepped outside, my mother's voice rang out one last time. "You'll regret this, Nathan. You'll see what you've done." I stood in the doorway, watching them disappear, then closed the door and leaned against it. For the first time in months, I could breathe. I turned to my half-packed apartment and muttered, "Goodbye, everything." Then, I went back to boxing up my life, feeling more at peace than I had in weeks. A few days later, Ethan decided to take his shot at retaliation, not in person, but online. He posted a long, dramatic rant on social media, dripping with self-righteousness. Some people just can't handle seeing others happy. He painted himself and Samantha as a couple rising above hate and negativity, focused on their love and future together. He claimed they were choosing positivity while others, me, obviously, clung to bitterness. The comments flooded in. People praised them for their strength and called them an inspiration. Some wrote about how much they admired their ability to stay positive despite all the drama. I stared at the screen, rage bubbling up inside me. He was twisting the truth. Again, Ethan wasn't some noble survivor. He was a liar, a man who had betrayed me, destroyed my life, and fractured his own family without hesitation. But as much as I wanted to call him out, I forced myself to step back. These people didn't know the truth. They didn't see the destruction Ethan left in his wake. They didn't understand the wreckage I was still trying to crawl out of. Yet, they celebrated him like some kind of hero. I took a deep breath, set my phone down, and walked away. Engaging wouldn't change anything. It would only pull me deeper into his false narrative. No matter how many likes or comments he got, I wouldn't let him drag me down. I had bigger things to focus on. They didn't know the truth, and they never would. What mattered now was moving forward, no matter what anyone else thought. Then came the unexpected. Samantha's reaction. After our last phone call, I expected her to double down, to keep spinning her story, gathering more sympathy. But, according to Sophia, my words had shaken her more than I realized. Sophia, who had become an unlikely ally, called me one afternoon. "Samantha's a wreck," she said. "She's been crying nonstop since you called her. I don't think she expected you to lash out like that." I could hear the frustration in her voice, mixed with disbelief. "What? She didn't think I'd finally tell her how I feel?" I asked, unsure if Samantha was genuinely upset or just playing the victim again. "She's not blaming you anymore," Sophia said softly. "She admitted to me that what she and Ethan did was awful. I don't think it really hit her until now, but she feels trapped in this mess she's created." I paused, processing that. "Trapped?" I echoed. "She and Ethan chose this. They can live with the consequences." "I know," Sophia sighed. "But she's scared. She thought Ethan would be stable, that he'd step up. Now that she's pregnant, she's realizing how reckless he is. She told me she doesn't feel secure. She doesn't know how they're going to make it work." That hit harder than I expected. Samantha had spent so much time acting like she was thriving, convincing the world, and maybe even herself, that she had won. But now it seemed reality was sinking in. I had always known Ethan was reckless and unreliable, but hearing Samantha admit it, that made it real. "She says she's stuck," Sophia continued. "She's terrified. She keeps saying she thought Ethan would step up, but now she's not sure." I felt a strange mix of vindication and pity. Samantha had convinced herself that she was in control, that she was making the right choices. Now, faced with the consequences, it seemed the weight of it was crushing her. "What do you want me to say, Sophia?" I asked, shaking my head. "She brought this on herself. I'm not going to be her safety net, and I'm not going to pretend we're fine." "I understand," Sophia replied. "But I thought it might help to know that she's struggling. I think she's finally realizing how badly she messed up." I didn't answer right away. Part of me wanted to say that Samantha deserved every ounce of suffering coming her way. But another part felt a strange kind of pity for her. Samantha had always tried to appear strong, but now it was clear. She was unraveling. "She's done too much damage," I said finally. "I can't help her." "I get it," Sophia said gently. "I just thought you'd want to know. She's not as confident as she pretends to be. She's scared about the future." After we hung up, I sat in silence, thinking. Samantha's breakdown didn't bring me joy. It didn't undo the betrayal. But it did show me something. Her and Ethan's life wasn't as perfect as they wanted everyone to believe. Their house of cards was starting to fall apart. Later that evening, my cousin Rachel came by to help me pack. As usual, she came armed with family gossip, keeping me updated on drama I had chosen to ignore. "You won't believe what's going on now," she said, dropping onto my couch. I raised an eyebrow. "What now?" She sighed. "Mom and Dad are trying to convince the rest of the family that you're having some kind of emotional breakdown. They keep telling people you're running away because you can't handle reality." I let out a humorless laugh. "Of course they are." "Yeah," Rachel muttered, crossing her arms. "They're saying you're overreacting, and that Ethan and Samantha just made a mistake, and you're the one making everything worse." I clenched my jaw. They were the ones who had ruined my life. And yet, somehow, I was still the villain in their story. "Let them say whatever they want," I said finally. "I don't care anymore." Rachel studied me for a moment before nodding. "Good." She reached for a roll of packing tape and smirked. "Now, let's get your ass to Seattle." Rachel settled onto the couch, shaking her head in disbelief. "You won't believe what just happened," she said. I raised an eyebrow. At this point, nothing surprises me. "Mom and Aunt Laura had a full-on screaming match," she said, her eyes gleaming with something close to satisfaction. "Aunt Laura ripped into her, called her out for always favoring Ethan and treating you like an afterthought." I sat up straighter. "Seriously?" Rachel nodded. "She told Mom that her years of favoritism were finally coming back to haunt her. That she turned a blind eye for too long and now she's paying the price." Hearing that someone else had finally said it, had seen it, felt oddly validating. "Wish I could have been there," I muttered. "Me too," Rachel grinned. On the legal front, my lawyer assured me the move wouldn't impact my case. "We're still pursuing charges against Ethan for violating the restraining order, and his attack allegations against you won't hold up," he said confidently. "The judge will see through his claims, especially with his history of ignoring the order. Moving across the country actually helps your case." It shows you're distancing yourself, not escalating things. I nodded. Good. I just want this to be over. And then, I left town. Now, here I am in Paris, a city I once thought was just a dream. The chaos and toxic family dynamics are behind me, and I'm on the cusp of something new. Something real. 3 years later, as the sun dipped low over the Seine, I stood at the altar, waiting for Isabella. The chapel was small and intimate, just as we had wanted. The city's quiet hum faded into the background as I focused on this moment. Our vows echoed in my mind, but a small part of me couldn't help noticing the empty seats, the ones where my family should have been. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a notification, a message from my mother. Even though I had her number blocked, she always found a way to reach out. Without reading it, I swiped it away. Not much longer now, Jason said, clapping me on the back. He had flown in from the States to stand by me. You all right? I nodded, though my throat tightened. Yeah, just thinking. About your family? I exhaled. I haven't heard from them in years. Jason gave me a knowing look. And that's a bad thing? I hesitated, then shook my head. No, not that it matters. Mom tried reaching out once, saying she was sorry, that they missed me. But I've heard it all before. I'm not reopening that door just to have it slammed in my face again. Jason studied me. So, no regrets? No, I said firmly. It hurts, but it's the right decision. Isabella and I are starting fresh, and I won't let the past drag me back. Jason grinned. Sounds like Isabella has been good for you. I smiled. She has. She's calm, steady, strong, the anchor I didn't know I needed. She's been with me through everything, even when I thought I didn't deserve it. Jason chuckled. She sounds amazing. And you deserve this, man. You've been through hell. It's time for your happy ending. Just then, the chapel doors opened, and there she was, Isabella, radiant in her dress. As she walked toward me, a sense of peace washed over me. The weight of the past lifted. For the first time, I felt completely free. Months later, whispers of Samantha and Ethan's unraveling found their way to me. Sophia, as always, kept me informed. One evening, she messaged me. Samantha cheated on Ethan, she said bluntly. With some businessman she met through work. It didn't take long for her to lose interest in their perfect life together. I wasn't surprised. She's back to her old ways? I asked. Sophia sighed. Pretty much. She was never happy, just pretending to be. Now she's wrecked things again. Their rushed relationship. The lies. The betrayal. It was all bound to implode. I had seen the cracks from the beginning. Samantha had convinced herself that Ethan could provide stability, but she couldn't escape her own patterns. Some people never learn, I replied. Sophia didn't argue. She knew I wasn't being cruel, just honest. After a pause, she asked, "Do you feel sorry for him at all?" I thought for a moment. Not really, I admitted. I don't wish him ill, but he made his choices. He knew exactly who Samantha was, and he still went after her. Yeah, Sophia said. I just wish he'd seen it coming sooner. I glanced out at the quiet street, watching the city lights flicker. They both made their bed, I said. Now they have to lie in it. Samantha and Ethan had built their relationship on betrayal. Now, they were watching it crumble. But that wasn't my problem anymore. My focus was on my life. And Isabella? She was right here with me, helping me build something real. Something untouched by the past. Now, Isabella and I are on our honeymoon in Thailand. Every moment feels surreal. We spend our days exploring colorful markets, lying on pristine beaches, and indulging in incredible food. The simple joys of this trip feel like everything I've ever needed. Looking back, I can finally say that I am free. Free from the weight of my past. Free from the toxic relationships. Free from the manipulations that once kept me trapped. Isabella understands me in a way no one else ever has. She brings out the best in me. She's my partner, my future, the center of my world. My family? They aren't part of this journey. And they never will be. I've realized something. I don't need them. What matters now is this life Isabella and I are building. The love we share. The adventures we're living. The future we're creating. Sitting here, in one of the most breathtaking places I've ever been, I feel content. I've let go of everything that held me back. For the first time in years, I am truly happy. Happier than I ever thought possible. And this? This is just the beginning. I can't wait to see where the next chapter takes us.